What's up, guys? It's Ben Chez, and welcome to Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, you're wondering, why am I playing the original Sonic the Hedgehog? It's real simple, because Sonic Mania is only a few days away, and much like I've done with a lot of games that I've particularly been extremely excited for, extremely hyped for, I'd like to do like a small little itty-bitty retrospect of some of the games of the franchise's past, in order to just give ourselves a little refresher course in the worlds of that certain video game franchise that we're going into. So Sonic Mania is coming out. And really, it's kind of just like Sega saying, you know what? Fans really like the Blue Hedgehog. They're a big fan of the little guy that goes fast, and instead of just like shunting fans who make all these wonderful fan-made games of this character, we're going to give them the chance, let alone the opportunity, to make a Sonic game. And they took it upon themselves to not only just make a Sonic game, but basically make the Sonic game that pretty much anybody who's been a fan of Sonic since the early 90s has been really wanting. And thus we're getting Sonic Mania, which will actually be out in just a couple of days, so it's pretty exciting, guys. Like most people are just like, what's so exciting about a game that looks like it came out on the Sega Genesis? Like, what's the big deal? I think it's more or less, aside from just the obvious, the nostalgia purposes of it, I think it's more or less just like celebrating like the legacy of Sonic the Hedgehog, like the history of Sonic the Hedgehog. Because I'll be honest, when Sonic the Hedgehog was first like out, like when the Sega Genesis was originally out, I wasn't a huge fan of him at first. I'll be the first one to tell you. Mainly because at the time when he was out, I was a Nintendo kid. I had a Super Nintendo. I played Super Mario World, and you know, I thought that was it. There were no other games for that. And then the whole time, I didn't think anything other than that. I didn't think there was anything but Nintendo. But this is where, when you go to school and you make friends and you talk to other kids, you learn things. And I had a really, really close friend of mine, who I'm still friends with to this day, introduced me to Sonic the Hedgehog. And originally, like, the way I was introduced to him, I wasn't originally introduced to him by the games or anything like that. I was introduced to him by the animated TV shows. Like, for those of you who remember the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog back in the day, the one that, just like the goofy little animated series, and then that had Sonic voiced by Jaleel White, aka Steve Urkel, another huge 90s icon. And it was a really quirky, funny Saturday morning style cartoon show. And it was fun. It was just a fun show. And at the end of, at the end of every episode, you get a little Sonic Says, and that's where the whole meme of "that's no good" came from and everything like that. So it really just took you back and just everything like that. So until then, like, and during that, like I said, I had never played a Sonic game before. And it wasn't until like I had actually gone over to spend the day at my friend's house, he said, "Hey, let's play some video games." And I'm like, "Cool, I like video games. We're gonna play some video games." Sweet. So we're playing video games, and he's like, all right, because he was one of those kids that was lucky enough to have like a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis. So I was just like, at first we just played, we played some Super Mario World, and then we played like Mario Kart. And he's like, hey, let's want to play something on the Sega? And I'm like, what? The Sega? He's like, yeah, I got a Genesis. Let's play some games on the Genesis. And I'm like, I felt like, I'm not gonna lie, as a kid, I was like, oh, I feel so dirty. I feel like I'm cheating on my love. So, but I'm like, okay, let's try it out. And the first game that he pulled out wasn't Sonic. It was not Sonic. The first game he pulled out was, if I remember correctly, I think it was Earthworm Jim. Yeah, I think it was Earthworm Jim. And I'm like, I've already played Earthworm Jim before, so on the Super Nintendo, so I'm like, I know this game. This game's familiar to me. I lost my rings! Go! Oh, the spikes of death. Anyway, so we were playing that for a little bit. And then he asked me, he's like, hey, have you ever played Sonic before? And I'm like, what's Sonic? And he's like, you know, the one from the cartoon and everything like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know that one. And he's like, yeah, he has a game. And I'm like, he's like, but isn't it just like Mario? And then he broke it down for me. He's like, no, he's nothing like Mario. He runs really fast and he beats up robots and he saves animals and stuff like that. And he's telling me this, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm gonna like that. That sounds dumb. And then, lo and behold, he pops the cartridge in. I hop into the first area, Green Hill Zone, episode 1. Then I hear the famous little jingle, and then I start playing it. And then I'm like, this is pretty fun. I think like the first thing that was really like getting to me was the way the Genesis controller looked. I was like, I don't really like this controller. The buttons are too wide apart. It's too round shape and everything. But I played. And then I just started playing, doing jumps, hitting enemies, and listened to that familiar tune. And then it wasn't until the one moment that solidified me in thinking that Sonic the Hedgehog is an amazing game. It was when I went through the first loop. And I think that, along the lines with everybody who's played Sonic games before, the second you go through your very first loop, you realize, I like Sonic games. It's one of those things, it's like, if that loop, that first loop you go through, captures you, and you're just like, alright, I'm in. I like this. I'm a fan of this, I want more of this. And just after that, I was hooked. Like, we went from playing through Green Hill Zone, then we went through Marble, and then we ended up just basically playing through the entire game in one weekend. And it was crazy. And it got to the point where we're just like, let's keep playing, let's see how fast we can beat it. Like, we weren't speedrunners or anything, but we kept trying to find new tricks and like little secrets and everything to see who can beat the level faster. It was one of those things where it's just like, it's the wonder of just playing a game that you've never played before and enjoying it so much that you want to discover and figure out like everything about it. Like, you want to find out how to get all the emeralds in the game, or you want to find every little secret little pathway you can break through the walls through. You want to see how many rings you can get on each level before you clear the level. You want to see if there's any hidden paths that'll lead you to 1-ups or anything like that. It was a crazy fun time. And I'll be honest, as much as it'll hurts to admit, when after we hung out and I went home, I turned on my Super Nintendo. I started playing Super Mario World, and then I sat there and I kind of realized to myself, this is fun. I like this system. I like this game. But this system doesn't have Sonic the Hedgehog on it, and I really want to play more Sonic the Hedgehog. And this was at the time where Nintendo and Sega were butting heads to see who was the best. And you either were a Sega kid or you were a Nintendo kid. And right there, I was torn between worlds because I loved Nintendo, but after playing Sonic the Hedgehog, I realized I like Sega now. And I really want to play more. And it got to the point where I tried so hard to like beg my parents to get me a Sega Genesis, because I wanted one. I wanted one because I played Sonic the Hedgehog on it, and I'm just like, I really, really want a Sega Genesis now. But my parents were, like, again, like, I was a kid and everything, and my parents, at the time, they didn't really make a lot of money and everything like that, because consoles were expensive, man. Like, our income wasn't as disposable as it is now. And, so it turned out, like, my parents just like, you have a Nintendo, you don't need this, we already got you this, so, and plus we can't afford another one, so I was just like, and basically it turned into me figuring out, like, how am I going to play more Sonic the Hedgehog? How am I going to play more Sonic games? And it got to the point where it's just like, back when, whoa, Sonic, why did you hit the spring? It turned into where because I was allowed to go to the video store to rent a video game, because like we never rented movies because none of us watched movies, but I would go like every like other week to a video store to rent some video games. That's what I would do. And at the time when I was going, my local video store, Video World, I still remember it, Video World, because I still, believe it or not, I still have my membership card to the video store that I've had since I was a kid. And so like a thing that they were like promoting and running and everything like that is like, hey, you can now rent video game consoles for $30 and you can keep it for 2 nights. And I'm thinking, huh? Because they had an NES, a Super Nintendo, and they had a Sega Genesis available for rent. So you could pay that money and you could rent it for the weekend, and it came with 1 free game rental. And I thought to myself, oh man, I could do this. I can bring a Sega home and I can play Sonic some more. But the thing is, a video game rental back in the day for a video game, it was like, I think it was like $9. It was $9 for, I think it was 2 nights, and then you could rent the game. So my parents already had like an issue with that when I was a kid. There's like, this is a little too much and everything like that. And everything. So convincing them to be like, oh, spending like $10 to rent a game was one thing, but spending $30 to rent a console, well, that was not the easy part. My parents pretty much said is like, you can rent the system, but you have to make the money for it. So I did what any red-blooded American boy would do. I cried. I cried like a wee little babu. I was just like, but I don't have any money. How am I gonna rent this? I want to play Sonic. And they said, you wanna make some money? Do some stuff around the house. Do some chores. Ask the neighbors if they need their lawns raked and everything like that. And I did the cliche thing. I did that. I went around, I knocked on neighbors' doors and stuff like that. It's like, hey, I'm trying to make a little extra money. Just checking to see if you need your lawn raked or anything like that. But then again, this was in the summertime where there was no leaves to rake. So I'm over there like an idiot. So I'm just like, so instead I was like, hey, I'll wash your car, or I'll clean your windows, or something like that. And I ended up doing that. And by the time, because again, this was a little bit later in the lifespan of the Genesis. So by the time I had enough money saved up that I could rent it myself. Right as I was doing that, it had occurred to me that right as I'm about to go there and rent it, there was a huge line. There was a humongous line at the video store. And apparently a lot of people were renting the Genesis. And I'm like, what? Why are so many people renting the Genesis now? What is going on? And it happened to be the day that Sonic 2 came out. It was the day Sonic 2 came out. That's why literally every kid was renting the Genesis. Every kid was renting the Genesis to play Sonic 2. And I'm over here like, I haven't even finished Sonic 1 yet, and Sonic 2 is out. Because again, this was before the internet and everything like that. And most of the time, the way you would get information about new games coming out or anything like that is one of 2 ways. You would see the TV commercial for it, or you would read it in a game magazine. And the only time myself I ever got to read game magazines is when I would go to the grocery store with my mom. And while she's shopping, I'd run over to the magazine section and I would look at the game magazines. And yeah, so I'm over there wanting to finish Sonic 1, and then I just got word that Sonic 2 is out. And I'm just like, And the worst part is, I'm over there realizing that, and all I want to do is play Sonic 1, and I'm there to rent, I'm over there to rent the console, and as I'm next in line, you guessed it, the store clerk literally tells me, he's like, hey man, we're all out of Genesis for rental today. And he's like, oh, okay. So instead, I kept my money in my pocket, and I told my mom, let's just go home. And my mom actually felt really bad for me for that night because of that, because she saw I worked really hard, and I really just wanted to play the Sega, and everything like that, so I could play Sonic the Hedgehog and everything like that. So, what my mom ends up doing, and this is why I feel still to this day I have the coolest parents like ever. My mom says is like, you really wanted to get it, didn't you? And I'm like, yeah. I was super bummed out. My mom's like, well, how much money did you save? Because I think initially I ended up saving about, I think I saved about $80. Because I wanted, because they had it like you can rent, when you rent the consoles, if you put a little bit more extra money in, you can rent it for a few extra days. So I wanted to rent it for about a week, so I had about $80 saved. So my mom looked over at me, and she looked at me and she said, I want to take you somewhere, alright? And I'm like, okay. So she takes me to, where was it? It was Circuit City. I remember it now. Yeah, it was Circuit City. So she takes me to Circuit City, and I'm thinking, it's like, what are we here for? I'm thinking we're here to buy like a new washer or dryer or something, because I know the one we had in the house sucks and everything. And she's just, and like, I'm walking with her. I'm not really saying anything because I'm still bummed out about the whole thing at the video store. And then like I hear in the background, I hear people talking. It was like people were buying the Genesis and everything like that. And my mom's just like, is this the one you want? And she's pointing at the Genesis. And I'm like, I was like gasping for air. I'm like, yeah. She's like, I'll tell you what, since you work so hard and everything like that, I'll help you pay for one, and we'll get you one today. And I'm in shock, and I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, you put a lot of hard work in it, and you showed me that you really want it, so I'm gonna help you buy one. So I'm like, okay. And then I pull my money out, and it's all folded and everything like that, because I don't have a wallet, I'm a kid. So I give my mom my money, and in that moment, my mom pretty much pulled the coolest thing ever, and she's like, I'd like one Sega Genesis and a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog. And then the store clerk tried to be smooth about it. He's like, Sonic 2 is out right now. We can bundle that with the console for you for an extra $40. And I kind of looked over at her and I'm like, and she's like, don't push your luck. So, I mean, granted, I didn't get Sonic 2, but I did get Sonic 1, and I was able to take it home that day and finish it. And it was probably one of the coolest experiences ever, because it was one of those things where it finally showed me, it's like, hey, you know, if you make an effort and you work for it and you really want something, if you work hard, you'll get what you want. Like, never let anybody tell you otherwise, that hard work does not pay off, because if you're determined and you want something, even if you're a kid, even if you're a small little weeny kid, if you want something bad enough, you will stop at nothing to like get what you want. That is what drives us as humans. That is what drives us as people. Don't ever think that nothing is completely attainable. Like when you're just in general, like not even as a kid, never think that something is unattainable. It's like, if you want it bad enough, you can get it. And I believe that. To this day, I believe that. And it's something that will stick with me for the rest of my life, because it was probably one of the coolest things that ever happened. And it's just like, yeah, it was a cool experience, man. And I just think it's funny that I bought a console from a store that doesn't exist anymore. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Because not everybody could say, it's like, oh yeah, I totally can still go to a Circuit City and buy a console now. Because you can't, because Circuit City doesn't exist anymore. But it was really cool, man. And it's just, I was there at school the next day talking to my friend and telling him, just like, man, I got a Genesis now, I can play Sonic and everything like that. And then like my buddy just tells me, just like, yeah, man, it's really cool now that you have one. I was like, you gotta get Sonic 2, man. You gotta get Sonic 2. Sonic 2's so much better. He's like, he moves twice as fast now, and he's got a friend that can fly, and you can play 2 players and everything like that. And I'm just like, oh, here we go again. But yeah, man. I will remember that moment forever. And it's one of those things, man. I was a Nintendo kid through and through. And I didn't think I would ever accept something that was not made by Nintendo. And lo and behold, there you go. It only took a little bit of a push for me to be like, you know what? Sega games are alright. Sega games are pretty freaking cool. I like it. I think I'm gonna keep at it. And I still am to this day, and I still am enjoying it the most anybody possibly can. Like, I really do still enjoy Sonic the Hedgehog games. I'm not like the crazy people that make the Sonic OCs or anything like that until Sonic Forces comes out. But it's fun to just like go back, reflect on something, and get yourself just ready for something from something you've been following since you were a kid. I know that something you've been following as a kid to help you just not only just kind of tug at your nostalgia strings, but make you realize how much time of your life has been spent playing this franchise, you know? It's a really cool feeling. It's a really cool feeling. And it's not just Sonic either. It's like, it's the same thing with Mario. It's the same thing with Zelda. It's the same thing with like fighting games with like Killer Instinct and stuff like that. It's all those things. It's a good feeling, man. That's just why I feel like video games to me are like that perfect source of like creativity and just like wonderful memories. Like, you can get memories from just about anything. Let's be real here. You can get them from just about anything. But I feel with video games, because they're so interactive and they're so like a part of just any kind of kid who ever had a chance to like get a game system, plug it in, turn their TVs to channel 3, and then just play a video game. And it just helps shape who they are as a person. It's just, you can't get that from a lot of other sources of media. But I'm glad it came into this one for me. And I'm glad to say that Sonic's coming back in more ways than one. And I'm really excited for Sonic Forces, man. I'm really excited. I'm excited for Sonic Forces. But I think I'm going to have the biggest nostalgia trip, at least. Or just enjoy the most with Sonic Mania. I just think that's going to be the most enjoyable thing. But I think I'll call it here for this episode of the Sonic the Hedgehog Retrospective as we get ready for Sonic Mania. So until then, guys, I hope you enjoyed this just little look back. And we'll be back with another one of the Sonic Retrospective, and we're going to be heading to Sonic 2. We're going to be playing not just the numerical ones in this retrospective. We're going to be playing some of the other ones. So maybe we'll be seeing some Sonic Spinball, maybe some Mean Bean Machine, maybe even some Sonic 3D Blast. But we'll see. Because this retrospective will continue after Sonic Mania comes out, because we're going to get ourselves ready for Sonic Forces. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this and had a good time with me. And I will see you guys soon in the next one, where we'll be looking at Sonic 2 as we go through a little bit of the memory and we go back and remember how fun it was to play as the Blue Hedgehog. So until then, guys, this was Sonic the Hedgehog. I've been Ben Chez. I love all your faces. I'll see you next time. See you later.